One day, when the glory comes, it will be...
Hi guys, my name is Tiara Perkins, and after Sam Houston State University, I plan on going to law school at Howard to help those who are wrongfully done by our judicial system and are facing time for crimes they did not commit or facing too much time for the same crimes that others have committed but did not receive as harsh of a punishment. I'm doing this with hopes of restabilizing broken American communities. That being said, I'll be giving you a tutorial about ways to end the negative consequences on what I think is one of America's worst policies, and that is the war on drugs. But before I do that, I will give you some background on this modern-day slavery and show you how people of color got from this to this. The war on drugs can be seen as the start of this trend of mass incarceration. The war on drugs is a series of actions toward the prohibition of illegal drug trade. It is a campaign adopted by the U.S. government along with foreign military aid and with assistance of participating countries to both define and to end the import, manufacture, sale, and use of illegal drugs. This initiative includes a set of U.S. drug policies that were proposed to discourage the production, distribution, and consumption of illegal psychoactive drugs. The term war on drugs was actually coined by President Richard Nixon on June 17, 1971, during which he described illegal drugs as public enemy number one in the United States. We now know 45 years later that the war on drugs wasn't meant to make America safer or more productive. The war on drugs was a war on people, and more specifically black and brown people, whom it sought to demonize and silence, criminalizing generations of youth of color, and created severe drug sentencing laws, ultimately to target and incarcerate communities of color. It was also meant to mute President Nixon's toughest critics to criminalize black people and so-called anti-war hippies. The war on drugs destroyed lives, torn families apart, filled our jails and prisons, and hijacked countless futures of black and brown youth. But that's what we're supposed to do. As of 2014, we had 2.2 million people in our nation's prisons and jails. And y'all, that's a 350% increase over the past 4 decades. 350%. This uptick took place at the same time we doubled down on policies born from the war on drugs, such as mandatory minimum sentencing. These policies were designed to destabilize and demoralize black communities, and they have been effective in doing just that. In fact, almost 60% of the people in prison today are people of color, and 1 in 3 black men born today will face the likelihood of imprisonment. Nationally, black men are 6 times as likely to be incarcerated as white men in federal and state prisons and local jails. The effects of the war on drugs has been and continues to be devastating. The millions of parentless homes, the heartbreaking struggles with addictions, the financial desperations, and the overall feeling that the system was built to hurt and not help are painful consequences of the racially motivated policy that continues to ripple through our communities. This war has left an unforgivable blight on black communities across the country, but yet it still rages through those communities. So this is where I began the steps to help end this violent cycle that's tearing apart our American communities. And the first step, I believe, is we must educate our youth, doing more than just Red Ribbon Week. We must show our youth the truth and bitter sides of the effects of drugs. We must then equalize punishment of drug crimes within our justice system. Everyone should be sentenced the same for likeness of crimes. There should be no way that African Americans and Latinos are sent to prison, while others are seen to have a mental illness and are sent to treatment centers. With that being said, we must make treatment centers more affordable. We want to end the problem, but we don't want to put forth the effort to make the problem cease. We must declassify marijuana as a Schedule I drug. There should be no way that a father is sentenced to 20 years in prison for a gram of weed. It's heartbreaking, and it's the sad truth of American society when we look at our judicial system. So we must declassify marijuana as a Schedule I drug. The side effects of marijuana compared to the side effects of heroin or cocaine are not even measurable, so they should not be on the same level. We have to go to the real root of the problem. Why are people on drugs and are selling drugs? We love to throw out statistics, but never want to go into depth on why these statistics even exist. We have to hold policymakers in Washington and presidential candidates crisscrossing the campaign trail accountable and demand they fulfill their moral and social responsibility to make America a true beacon of justice and democracy it was meant to be. We must demand that policymakers in Washington begin unraveling the policies that have shackled generations of young Americans by supporting criminal justice reforms such as the Sentencing Reform and Corrections Act, and start peeling back layers of policies that have criminalized and demoralized our communities for too long. We need to make American prisons a true form of rehabilitation, not a deformation of life. Our prisons are packed with people serving long, harsh sentences, and many are for drug offenses. Instead of providing people with rehabilitation or treatment centers or even education or job training, we're putting them into these cages, leaving them untreated, forgotten, and ignored, hoping that when they leave, they'll be able to fit back into society. Wrong. They're going to go back to what they know, using drugs, selling drugs. And this leads to a high level of recidivism. There's no cure-all for what has become of our so-called justice system, but pursuing legislative reforms and calling for a new era in American justice on the campaign trail is a strong first step in empowering and teaching the next generation of young Americans that incarceration is not inevitable.
One day, this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama with its vicious race